Let's wait for this. Perfect. I think we have it now. Wonderful. Great. Welcome everyone to another episode of RWD Podcast. I am your host, Viv. This is Real World Discovery Podcast, where we will have leadership series featuring experts from modern industries. And by subscribing to our podcast, you'll discover real world problems and solutions, gain industry tacit knowledge, and pick up insights and advice from an experienced professional on what it takes to actually succeed in the real world. So subscribe right now before it's too late, and let's go find out who our guest is. Hello. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. And Viv, thank you for having me today. It's so lovely to be here.
I'm so excited to have you on the show. Please tell us about you.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. There's a lot. Let me just start by introducing who I am. My name is Lianne Dehaye. I've been living in Singapore since 2007, and I've been in the tech industry for the last 15 years of my career. So it's quite a journey. It's quite a ride. And I'm very excited to be chatting with you today just to give some nuggets of wisdom to those folks who are looking to begin their journey, their professional journey.
Perfect. So first, you talked about professional journey of other people. Let's first talk about your journey. What did you study at school, then at the university, and what are you doing right now, or what were you doing? I mean, in a workplace. Tell us if there is any relevance.
Oh, this is probably going to take a while because, I'm not really exactly young, but in university, you'll be extremely surprised that the degree that I had was actually in fine arts, and I majored in advertising. So if we were to just chart the professional journey of that person, it would have been in an advertising agency, either as an art director or someone who's in the creative space. However, I've witnessed the first economic crisis. At that time, it was the Asian financial crisis. It was extremely difficult to find jobs, and we are also in a recessionary environment right now. But so I can empathize for those folks who are actively seeking. And so at that time, I did land a gig as a graphic designer. I was not very well paid, but I think I was just optimizing to have a job. And there was real pressure from people because I graduated with an honors degree. And so there's this just pressure that I put on myself that, oh, am I going to be the person who had an honors degree and yet is unemployed, So even if it wasn't the best opportunity, there weren't that many. So beggars cannot be choosers. So I took that role as a graphic designer. And then I would say that's version 1.0 of my career. And then I moved to business process outsourcing. So at that time, there were a bunch of companies who are starting the outsourcing model, and we were sort of the guinea pigs. We were version 1.0 of this cohort. And they are basically looking for people who can speak very well, communicate very well, and that would have been version 2.0. So I guess just fast forward, how did I end up in tech? So when I was working in the business process outsourcing, I actually touched a lot of industries, mainly financial industry. I was looking after cards, credit cards, and gift cards. And then eventually I found myself working for IBM just because they were also looking to expand their business model towards that space. And so from IBM, I was really dying to get out of the country. There are limited opportunities for me there. So I was thinking, you know what, I'm just going to do everything that it takes to get out of my home country, which is the Philippines. And so I applied for whatever. LinkedIn was not a thing back then. We had very, very limited job portals. And at that time, it was monster.com. I'm not sure if our listeners out there were already born when this thing was the only thing that we had aside from JobStreet. We didn't have LinkedIn. LinkedIn came in a few years later. So monster.com it is. And I found an opportunity for Google. And Google at that time was just at a very, very early phase. They have just started building out their advertising business model. they're very much just like a search engine. It was the most popular search engine, and no one has heard of AdWords. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to study what the heck this is, and just put forward my resume. Whatever. I'm just there's nothing for me to lose and everything for me to gain. And so the recruiter called me back, and I was really, really genuinely surprised. And I went through a series of interviews, and then a couple of months later, I found myself packing up my bags and flying to Singapore. So that's, I would say, version 2.0 of my career. And then from Google, I worked there for 4 years. I can talk about the different roles that I had. I took a break. I did feel that I was hitting my ceiling at Google. I wanted something more. I wanted to improve myself. And I think looking back at the history of my career, that has always been the theme. I am grounded by a couple of personal principles, and learning has always been a principle. And so I packed up my bags again, and I went to Europe. I went to Madrid to do my business school. So I pursued an MBA. I was living in Madrid for about a year and a half. And then I moved to Paris, where my fiance, now husband, was living. And then I came back to Singapore to work for Facebook. And I was with the company for like a full decade. So that's a really long time. So if I were just to summarize the starting point and the end point, those two things have nothing to do with each other. Like fine arts, advertising, and then working in a big tech, because my journey has never been linear. I was very intentional, but it's not linear. So, and here we are.
Tell me what inspired you to pursue the position that you had in Meta.
I've had 4 roles at Meta. So I would say the first role that I had at Meta was very similar to some of the things I've done at Google. And this is where I would say the roles that I've landed eventually in my career has always been offered to me by a connection, not a friend, like a weak connection, someone I've worked with in parallel, and he has seen the type of work that I've done. And he asked me if I'll be interested to join Facebook. As a matter of fact, it's the second time that they asked me. The first time, I was like, what the hell, social media company? Or how do they make money? I was not that interested to work for a social network. And so this was the second time they're like, look, we're actually building a business, and I think you're going to be a good fit for our team because you've done this before to a certain degree. We need someone who can build and who can roll up their sleeves and just get the job done. So that was the first role. And then I moved to do 4 different roles. I realized I have a 3-year learning itch, meaning I tend to max out. I hit a learning plateau after 3 years. And that's why over the course of 10 years, I did 4 roles at Meta. Very different from each other too. So my first role, again, has nothing to do with the last role that I had, which is in monetization analytics.
Yes. But oh my God, that thing that you mentioned about a 3-year learning is a very interesting thing. It requires a lot of getting to know yourself to be able to say, okay, after 3 years, I need to move on to a new thing. Because most of the time we're so confused. If we have things like this right now, I'm thinking, do I have that as well? Maybe for me, it's like 2 years, something is going on right now. But no, I'm gathering my thought. I'm doing the interview right now.
No, it could be a year, it could be 3 years, but I think within yourself when you become bored. Let's just be very honest.
Yeah.
When you hit boredom period, it means the job is not interesting, because it's like riding a bicycle. You know it inside out, and it's not as interesting for you anymore. And when I hit that moment, that's really a nudge for me to start either building up a skill set. Quite recently is very relevant to my latest role. So what I was doing was sales strategy and operations. So what we do is set KPIs, optimize processes, and really manage stakeholders, and also find revenue opportunities. How else can a company make money, right? And so I felt like, okay, it's good, but I think it could be better. And so I did a 12-week course with MIT. And you can see, I'm not young, but like I said, one of my core tenets as a person is really learning. I felt like there's always something to learn, and it can only be good for you, because at the end of the day, those little wisdom and skill sets that you gather over time, they will compound, right? It just makes you more attractive as a candidate. It just really expands your knowledge. It makes you better at the things that you do, whatever you choose to pursue. So this MIT course I did, data science and machine learning. It was tough because doing that while working, but at the same time, I just felt so rewarded because it was so interesting, this whole thing. So I guess that's me as a person. I just really embrace learning a lot. I love challenging things. I love having to conquer that learning curve over and over again.
Can you tell me what skills and qualities do you believe are essential for professionals working in the tech industry, regardless of their specific role?
I would say so. If we're talking, let me just go back and take a step back. When we say tech industry, it's huge. It's so broad. There are startups, there are scale-ups, and there are more established tech. The DNA that they have is really being innovative. And innovative is such a buzzword, right? But basically, innovation is just boiling down to solving problems. So if there's any skill set, regardless of you're from a startup or you're in an established big tech, it's always about the desire and the tenacity and the drive to solve problems. Because every single day, there will be a problem for you to solve. Probably more so if you're in a startup phase and a little bit less so, but that's what drives innovation. You are constantly thinking about how to make things better. So if I were just to single out a skill set, it's always about solving problems. And, this is the desire to make things better, right?
That makes so much sense. That's actually one of the things that we are very big on when it comes to Own Academy, solving problems. So we have the problem and the solution. This is why actually this RWD podcast was created to begin with. Perfect. Okay. Can you tell me what is the most challenging aspect of jobs actually in tech industry, and how do we deal with it? You can even actually talk about all the jobs that you have, because you have a lot. So what is the most challenging aspect of all of these things you've done for you?
Oh dear, there are a lot of barriers. I would say maybe let's tackle it from the internal, and then I will go to the external barriers. Internal would be in any company, this is probably not specific to tech, is essentially people, right? When you talk about change management, the process is very easy to change. What's difficult is getting people to change their behavior. And so if people, customers, your vice presidents, your managers, if they're used to doing a certain thing, if you want to get something done, and you really believe you're solving that problem that we talked about, you need to get stakeholder buy-in. You need to get their support. And that is a skill that I think is crucial for people to learn, because that's what's going to help you succeed. Who's your ally? Who has your back? We always think of problems as tangible things, but over time, once you work in a corporate environment, you would realize that what's really going to help you succeed is your ability to navigate the different people in your organization, managing up, managing down. And then if we go to, and then behavior would be moving to external, it's your clients. They're used to doing a certain way. At least for me, essentially Facebook, Google, they're in the advertising business, right? What they do is they sell ads. They don't monetize in the service. You don't have to pay whenever you search for something at Google. You don't have to pay to use Facebook, but the way they make money is that they show you ads, right? And so there are some big companies who are not used to digital environment. They're not used to digital advertising. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do it effectively. They're used to TV, newspaper. And so there's another behavior change that I needed to tackle in some of the roles that I've had, and most of the roles that I've had, actually. And then I would say any company, especially tech, especially something that involves innovation, would always be subject to some kind of regulatory environment. I mean, OpenAI is actively calling for regulation, right? Because we need to make sure there will always be bad actors. it's not the platform, it's the people using the platform. There's no, it's a platform is neutral, but there's always going to be good sides and bad sides to tech. And only because some people choose to use it, to fulfill their own interests, and they have very bad intentions to harm other people. And so there's abuse and misuse of platform. And so platforms like this, any platform, you can talk about, ChatGPT, you can talk about Facebook, TikTok, all of these tech industries will always be, subject to some kind of regulatory threat. And so I would say those are some of the big challenges. There's an element of people behavior management, and then external barriers as well.
You mentioned the people management part. One of the core competencies we have here at Own Academy is openness and kindness. Is this openness and kindness a part of that people management part? If it is, how does it look like?
Absolutely. Well, I can speak to Google and Facebook. I can probably not, represent other tech companies in the FANG or the MANG, right? Netflix and Amazon. I would say in both companies, Google and Facebook, we do care about the people experience a lot. So managers have 10 expectations, 10 behavioral expectations, and those two values that you mentioned, kindness and openness, are definitely part of that expectation grid. And just because, we care about people who genuinely feel empathy from their management, and people who show care for you cannot really just dissect, right? You cannot compartmentalize. This is my professional self. I'm going to leave my personal problems at home. It doesn't work that way. You're one whole person. And so your manager is expected to show empathy and to really help you unlock barriers or just remove barriers. And so I would say people who receive this type of people management and who give this type of people management are just more productive people in general. Because how can you perform when there's a micromanager breathing behind your back, yelling at you all the time? People are just going to be suboptimal, right? And that's why I would say for Google and Facebook, it's really one of those things that we value, and we actually encourage and evaluate people managers on.
Oh my God, I feel like I need to have like a coaching session with you at this very moment. So I'm like, they were supposed to do this because they didn't do it. What is going on? I'm so glad that I actually changed my position as well. So like what you're saying now, I understand that managers do care, but I think it's not really easy to find jobs that managers know that this is a part of their job.
Yeah.
They always are like, leave everything at home, whatever problems you have, and then here is work. You bring in money.
No, absolutely. And I cannot say, I'm pretty sure in other companies it's not always the case, but as you can see, majority of the tech companies have the same DNA. They have the same core DNA. They are more progressive in terms of their thinking. It's not the same for a lot of companies, unfortunately. And at the same time, I can also empathize. Some managers are under a lot of stress. And so you can't, it's just like any relationship. It's a two-way street. And so you, as the future employee, also need to understand how to manage this type of behavior, right? How do you want to respond to it? Because at the end of the day, you are in control of your reactions. That's just another stimulus. And so I would say happiness is a choice, kindness is a choice. And I think these are choices that you can actively make. I always tell my children that you can always choose to be kind. You can be a jerk, or you can choose kindness. And you are just a byproduct of all the choices that you made. Who you are as a person would be a byproduct of the choices that you made. So yeah, that's something that I always choose. And, if folks are interested in some reading material that has helped me, these people are not paying me, by the way. I'm not here to endorse. I am not an influencer by any means. But some people are finding a difficult time managing up, there are definitely books that personally help me just to classify what type of managers these people are and what is the way for me to deal with them. Because I can control me. I cannot control what they're going through and how they treat me, but I can control how I react to those types of people.
Absolutely. Please tell us.
Yeah,
One of
there's
those books.
apologies, but it's a book called Jerks at Work.
I love that.
Very, it's short, it's fun, it's a light read, but very insightful. Like, there are jerks at work, let's be honest. How do you deal with them? So that book just gives you a bit of like coping strategies and very pragmatic tips.
I love this. I'm definitely gonna search right now to have it as my books, to start reading it starting from tomorrow. I love how when you're going through books like this, especially if you had an experience like this in the past, you're like, oh, I knew I was not wrong.
It's like, oh, and you can actually start assigning names to some of those jerks
Yes.
at work.
Perfect. Now let's go back to the people who are actually not in the work field for now. How can individuals and non-technical backgrounds enter and thrive in the tech industry?
Okay, that's a great question, because I'm here to bust some myths and some, misconceptions, right? When people hear tech, they always think, do I have to be technical? Do I have to be an engineer? All I'm going to say to that is that there are three types of roles within the tech industry. Sorry, babe. Am I? Okay, sorry. I thought I lost you for a second. So I would say three types of roles in the tech industry. One is if you are a builder, definitely engineering, software engineering, developer type of career track is for you. However, somebody needs to sell those products that people build. And so that's the business side. And if you are more into sales, marketing, operations, I am from the business side. I don't code. I mean, I can, but in the capacity of my role, not really to build the products. And so that could be it. And then the other third function that you can explore is the support function. At the end of the day, any tech company is just any other company. They would need people from HR. They would need legal to review contracts. So there's just like a whole bunch of functions. So I would say if you are pursuing a specific track, there's always a role for you in a tech company, just because they're just a business like anyone else, right? And, for product, it's not just, I forgot to mention, for product, I think this is very important. There's a whole team of people and skill sets who build products. It's not just engineering. They have UX designers, they have product managers, they have content designers, there's researchers, there's just a whole lot of skill sets that are very, very useful to tech companies.
Sorry. Okay. My other question would be, what challenges do professionals in non-technical roles face when in predominantly tech-focused environment, and how do they handle difficult, stressful situations like this at work?
Sorry, Viv, can you say that again? So which challenges you mean at work or getting into?
No. Professionals in the industry.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess going back to some of the things I've mentioned earlier, right? So for professionals specifically, let me break it down into the tech and the non-tech, right? So the tech people always have a bug, an issue. Facebook goes down, Google goes down. They need to make sure that the code base works. That's their job. So there's the aspect of keeping the lights on. They need to make sure that everything's working. They need to make sure that we are making faster products. And I can tell you a story later on of how that is. So they need to constantly improve the product, because a crap product will lose users. So that's the challenge that tech people always solve. From the business side, the big challenge is keeping people's money, right? At the end of the day, your business. How do you actually increase revenue? And that's tough because you're selling stuff. And I'm not talking about Facebook and Google in general, because the product is good. There's the user base and advertisers are naturally attracted to these types of platforms. But imagine you're in a tech industry selling B2B enterprise kind of products. That's hard. That's really, really hard, because then you have to convince someone to pay for licenses and to switch their entire system into a new enterprise solution. It's hard. So that's, I would say, the challenge of the business. Like, how do we actually get customers? How do we keep paying customers? And how do we win back those people that we lost? So I would say those are the main challenges. One, building product. One, building the revenue channels. So those are, I would say, the two general challenges that people in our industry face.
Did you use the term fast product?
No, SaaS, probably. Software as a platform.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about that? Because you said you can tell us about that.
Yeah.
Later.
So, sorry, I was telling about. I was planning to tell you about a story of how to improve products. So this was a
yes, we love stories. Go.
Yes, for sure. So if you look up Marissa Mayer, so Marissa Mayer used to be the VP of product at Google. She is obsessed with user experience. Okay, so she is brilliant, and so she is one of those people who are just really obsessed about consumer experience. And so people said, we want more results. Why are you only limiting it to 8 results? We want more results on a page. Why do you have to keep, clicking next, and making us search for more results? And so Marissa was like, and this was a really interesting learning for her. She's like, okay, let's give what the customers want, because they want more results. Let's put more results on the Google page. So I think they built around, let's say, 15 or 30. They tested a bunch of iterations. Let's give what the people want. That's basically the premise. What do you think happened? What do you think happened?
I have no idea. Was it too much? They said we don't want this much?
No, they actually lost traffic. And so this is why metrics are super important to tech. And you're like, what? How could this be? We gave everybody what they wanted, but we lost traffic. Apparently, with more results, the slower the load of the page. So they didn't actually think about that, right? There's a cost to giving what customers want. So this is just like the type of problems that tech people need to solve, because they need to balance what the consumers are asking for and the technical capabilities, and they need to make some kind of trade-off, right? And they always rely on the metrics. So Google is metric obsessed. So that's one thing. If anyone is exploring a role in a tech company, most of the tech companies are just absolutely driven by metrics. And so they saw a drop, and that's because they didn't really account for the slow loading of the page, right? So anyway, that's a story. If you want to search for it, it's on the internet. I found it somewhere. So yeah, check it out.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me, as you were talking, you also mentioned OpenAI. Can you tell me what has this artificial intelligence done to the roles within the tech industry?
Oh, there's a joke. I don't know if you've seen this meme, like, oh, OpenAI needs to understand what clients want. Thank God we're safe, because they never know what they want, right? I would say people are genuinely threatened. And just to tell you, OpenAI is AI has been around for quite a while. Large language models, we're talking about image processing, machine learning, right? And so it's been around for quite a while, for a couple of years. It's just that ChatGPT blew up because now consumers, the regular people like you and myself, find there's an obvious use case for it. I'm like, oh my God, we can type our essays. I can shorten emails. There's just a very pragmatic use for it. But tech companies have been using AI. They've been using it to determine algorithms that's being served to you. When your search results, my search results, not the same. Your Netflix homepage, my Netflix homepage, not the same. And all of that is powered by machine learning, right? And so it's a tool. I think it's designed to make the workplace better, like really eliminate very tactical, repetitive processes. And you as a person, that's not the type of work that you would do. It's just, churn out the same thing day in and day out, right? And so Those are the things a machine can do. And this is where I go back. Then how do you actually upgrade yourself? How do you make yourself more indispensable? Because there are definitely pieces of work in a company that a machine learning model or an AI can do better and faster. And so for folks who are in this type of line of work, then, it's evolution. Technology evolves. We people need to evolve, and we need to just find the next big thing, right? So for us specifically, I mean, I would say people in the tech industry, we've definitely relied on AI a lot in terms of just improving the work. Some of the tools that I use, some of the tools that we use internally are already powered by AI. But I mean, we still have a job to do. There are pieces of the work that an AI cannot freely think about, right? I don't think we're there yet. So people should chill a little bit, definitely maximize. I'm not against using OpenAI, but people are scared that that will make people dumber. Like, yeah, sure, if you rely on ChatGPT to write your essays, but if I ask you what is it that you wrote about, you should be able to tell me, right? Because then that's the whole point of learning. How are you able to debate and absorb the information that was given to you? So yeah, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think the eradication of the jobs is going to happen just yet. It will, but we evolve. That's just the way forward, always going forward.
That's what I heard from a lot of people as well, like the professionals. They're like, we're not there yet. People need to chill.
They're very, very pragmatic use cases, I have to say. And, it's a tool. It's just like in the agriculture, we were given tools, right? And you use it so that you become more productive. That's my point of view with AI.
Can you tell me, what does networking play in your profession? What role does it play? And how do you build and maintain professional relationship? Because you also mentioned that the positions that you have had so far, they were given to you, not given, but like you got to them through someone, like small connection. Can you tell me what networking does in your field? Do we even use it in data, non-tech jobs or not? Tech and
Oh,
non-tech.
100%. 100%. Networking is such a dirty word. I think when people hear about it, it's almost like this preconceived, forced, very connived type of interaction. I think people need to think about it differently. It's your curiosity to know about the person. What are they doing? What do they do? Hear their story. That's really what networking is about. It's about reaching out to people and connecting, right? It's very important. And I'm not just saying in non-tech roles. It's very important when you work in the corporate environment. Like I said, the person who got me the job at Google, I just work with this person in parallel. Those are your weak links. So the weak links are typically the people who will open doors for you. And that's why it goes back to what I'm saying. Kindness is a choice, because you just never know, right? Like, who is going to hold that door open for you for your next opportunity? So there's another book that I read. It's called The First 90 Days. And so when you start work, whether you're just starting out work for the first time or you're moving to a new role, I've moved roles 4 times, right? The thing that I really loved about that book is that you don't need to learn about the process. You don't need to solve anything for your first 90 days. Your job is to connect to as many people as you can, because you need to figure out who's going to have your back and help your life make, or whoever's going to make your life easier, right? And so that term is called the organ rejection syndrome. Your job is to make sure that you're not rejected by this body that has their own culture, their own way of doing things. In order for you to succeed in that organization or in that company that you're applying for, you need to understand how these people work and just start connecting with people. The least commitment is VC, and it's very, very easy these days. And I can tell you, more often than not, people are extremely generous with their time. They've been there. If you want to talk to them, just reach out, just ask. I think the biggest barrier really to networking and to any kind of connection is the rejection, right? Of course, no one likes to be rejected. It's like speed dating. It's no one likes rejection, but more often than not, it's people are very generous. And so, hey, can I have like 10 minutes of your time? I just want to tap your brain. I'm new here. I just want to understand the organization better. And by doing that, maybe over and over and over again, you would have just like a web of people that you're already connected to and who can help you out, just point you in the right direction. So I would say it's extremely important. It's a very important skill to have. And not just for your own self-gain, it also makes your work easier. So a client, especially say in the financial service industry, where in work, the referral network is super important. Like if I can say, I really had a good experience here. Oh, let me bring in a friend. And so really it's a small investment of your time that compounds again over time, right? So I always am a huge advocate of building your social capital. It's super important. You just never know. And it goes a long way. There are people that I've met 15 years ago who are still willing to help me out and land me a new gig, you know? And so, yeah, that's a very, very long-winded answer just because I really, really believe in this stuff. And I think people do not value it as much, or they don't understand how important it is to succeed in the corporate world. We always believe in people will see me, people will hire me because I'm good. It's like, darling,
that's not it.
It's not it. It's who you know. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that is very true. But I also think that the fear of rejection that you mentioned, it also plays a really big role, especially these days. I don't know if it is only people around me that are like this, or just everyone basically is this way, but they have a real big fear of rejection. That's why they don't even start a conversation with someone, especially if they see they have a lot of followings on any of these social platforms. They're just like, nah, they're not going to even see my messages. So they don't even try to begin with.
No, I hear you. And it's real, right? It's no one likes to be rejected because rejection is almost like an instantaneous evaluation of what you're worth. So you tend to internalize it. And so the biggest step really, and that's why I love this quote, I forgot who said it. The biggest barrier between you and success is your fear, and rejection is, it's a very valid and legitimate fear. And so if you, to your point, keyword is to try. And so you just have to have thick skin. And I can tell you, I reached out to people in LinkedIn. It's like, hey, I'm interested in your company. Do you think we could chat? Crickets. I'm like, okay, moving on. Right? I've applied to so many jobs. Nothing. Okay, moving on. As long as you, I think the trick is that as long as you don't internalize this rejection, this is not about you. It could be so many things, especially for folks who are going to pursue roles or are very close to pursuing roles. If you don't hear, you know what, there's so many reasons. Maybe the recruiter was let go. Maybe that was just an orphan post that the company didn't take down. Maybe it's a token posting. They really want someone internal, but they have to put the role external. There's just so many legitimate reasons why you don't hear back, and it has nothing to do with you as a person. And so I think if you go in there with that mindset that, look, if I don't hear back from this person, maybe they're just busy. They don't have the bandwidth. It's never about you. It's always about something else. So the key word really, as you said, is to try, because, taking the first step is already takes you closer to your goal than not doing anything. And not doing anything is also a choice, by the way.
What you said right now actually reminded me of the first time we started talking, and you told me about receiving feedbacks and criticism, which it helped me a lot since that time. Like every time I receive it, I'm like, go back to what you know, go back to what you know. It's not about you. So can you tell them as well, our listeners, can you tell them how do you handle constructive feedback or criticism from superiors, from colleagues at work, from basically anyone?
Oh, I can tell you, we do have what we call a performance cycle. I think receiving feedback, you have to be in the right mindset. Of course, if I'm having a bad day, I will be less open to it, because when people criticize you, again, you don't like to be attacked. You're always on the defensive, right? And so you need to create that conscious barrier between your reaction and what was being said to you. So I would say that's one. And then two, assume good intent. Of course, some people just criticize, oh, you gain weight, or oh, you look like crap. Not that kind, right? But in a professional workplace, we also teach people how to give feedback, because you want to make sure that the person in the receiving end will be open to feedback. So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it as well. And also the environment, the timing. So for me personally, it's hard because if somebody criticizes you about the work, but going back to just create the barrier that this is not personal. If they're talking about my work, I don't take any offense. And you know what? You're right. Actually, it can be better. And if you take it from a place like this person wants to help me versus this person wants to put me down or criticize me, then it changes the narrative, right, into a more positive mindset. So I think if I were, before I open my written feedback, I actually make sure I'm calm and, create a space for me to be open to it. If it's real-time feedback, what I do is just create that barrier, not just pause before I react, and just assume good intent from that person, that this person is saying this to help me and not really to put me down or to devalue who I am and my work.
Thank you. I really wanted the listeners
It's
to also hear what you told me. It is really hard.
hard.
But with practice always makes perfect. With practice, it actually becomes like something that you will instantly do without even thinking about it.
Yeah, that's why I sleep on it, right? Especially
Yeah,
because if
for
you
sure.
work hard, then your manager says, oh, it's still not good enough. Of course, it's very difficult to not take that personally. So I would say maybe just start with a thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Let me go back and think about it, and I will respond to you if you're not ready to react. Again, creating that space, right? So yeah,
Oh,
but
I
it's hard.
love that. I love that. Yes. Thank you. I'll talk to you later. Maybe
Yeah,
never. And then leave the company forever.
I'll get back to you next year.
Perfect. Can you tell me what are some ways to establish yourself as a reliable and trustworthy employee in whatever job you're having? Because it seems like you're pretty good at it.
I would say the formula is very simple. You say something, and for me specifically, I really honor commitments. I take that very seriously. So if we say we're going to do this, we have to do this. And I would say trust is earned. If you tell your manager you're going to do it, you better deliver, because then it's a breach of contract if you fail to deliver on time, or at least give them the courtesy. If you really cannot do something on time, give them courtesy and a very definite time frame. I'm sorry, I can't do it in 24 hours because of so and so, but please give me another 48 hours and it will be done, right? That's courtesy and just making sure you fulfill what you said. The second way to build trust and your reputation is to be an expert. Just excel in what you choose to do. And when people see that you're good at it, then people are just drawn to you. They want your expertise. They want your knowledge, just because they can see you're doing something really well. So I would say those are just the ways to build trust and credibility in your organization.
Can you tell me what advice do you have for young individuals who are actually watching this or listening to this podcast, who are interested in pursuing careers in tech industry, but are unsure about the path that they want to choose? What advice do you give them?
Wow. That's very interesting. I think if we go back to the start of our conversation, I mean, everyone, like I said, the way I started did not define the way I ended. And my chapter is not over. It's still being written. I'm ready to pursue my version 3.0. I don't know what that is yet. So if there's any advice, especially for people who are expected to know exactly what you want, that's not possible. Give yourself permission to pivot. So I think these artificial expectations and pressures and boundaries That's all in our head. No one wrote a rule book saying you cannot change careers, because I don't expect people who are 13, 14, 15, 16. I was 16 when I was asked to decide what I want to do in life. That is such a huge onus to put on a 16 years old. I don't even know what I want to have for breakfast tomorrow. That is such a huge life decision. And I tried advertising. I realized, you know what? It's interesting. I'm good at it. I can pull a bunch of decent drawings. This is not what I want to do for a career. This is not fulfilling to me. I love it as a passion project. Sure, graduated with honors, but because I have a commitment to excellence for myself. So I gave myself permission to pivot. And then the other advice is term goals, right? It's very daunting. Break it down into bite-sized pieces. I live in a 2, 3, 4-year time horizon. I don't look out 10 years because I don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. I love the concept of progressive principle. As long as you're doing something bit by bit, eventually you're going to get to your goal. As long as you're intentional about what you're doing, meaning I have set my eyes to do this. It's not going to happen right now. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to do XXX, these 3 things right now. It's going to help me inch towards my goal. And eventually I'm going to get there. But planning your life, it's very difficult. Most people don't know what they want. And so give yourself permission to pivot, break down long-term goals into bite-sized pieces, because that's more doable. And you feeling accomplished allows you to move forward faster than you doing nothing at all and being paralyzed with fear and anxiety.
But this will be for anyone in basically any career or industry.
I would say
that it will work for everyone.
It will work for everyone. It's not very specific to tech. If you are looking to build a career specifically in tech and you are very sure that this is your calling, this is what I want to work for the Googles and Facebooks and the Netflixes of the world, the number one, understand which part of tech do you want to work in? Are you on the tech side, business side, or HR, right? And then 2, start talking to people who work there. So, because they can give you like a real understanding, how do I become super good at, say, coding in a certain language? They can give you tips. They can give you websites. Oh, go to Lead Code. This is how you can write the best possible code. So actually talking with people who are already doing the job allows you to minimize potential mistakes because they've walked the path. Always go with people. You don't have to make the same mistakes over and over. People already made those mistakes. So do your shortcut and actually talk to people and understand how you can succeed. On the business side, I would say the business side is a bit more flexible. Definitely, if you're going to work in one of the FANGs or the big techs, right, there are specific skill sets that they're looking for, like knowledge in advertising, digital marketing, and so on and so forth. So again, if that is the path, that's your long-term goal, what should you do? Then maybe take up a digital marketing course. Again, you need to be intentional if you're very clear where you want to end up. So that's all I'm going to say.
Perfect. I am going to wrap up the show, but before this, I have 2 questions that are totally irrelevant to one another.
Absolutely.
One question would be, did you do the drawing that is behind? I've been looking at it from the beginning.
Wait, I actually have a bunch of paintings behind me. I didn't do this one. I do have another one that I've done. I'm actually working on a 3rd piece. But yeah, this is not me. This is something else. But I have a bunch of stuff that I have in this room.
Oh my God.
There's one for my son. Okay. Let me see. So there's that painting over there. That's mine.
Nice.
There's my son did this abstract, something in the back. Best to hide it. But yes, I do. And I think that's important, right? Because like I said, I do come from an arts background. And so it's very important to me to fill that bucket. I cannot be all numbers. I do love my Excel sheets. Don't get me wrong. I love my formulas, but I need a balance and you need to fill that cup, right? And that's what's going to make you feel happier and a more complete person. Okay, what's the second irrelevant question?
Yeah, no, the second one is more relevant. These two were not relevant to one another at all. So the second one would be, uh, what would be the last word you have for people who are watching this or listening to this podcast episode?
Oh, that's hard. That's really hard. I've said so much.
I
I've
know,
said so
and it's
much.
gold. Like every second that you were talking, I was like, this needs to go on social media. Everybody needs to
Oh,
listen.
oh, you're very kind. I would I would just say, oh, I have so many. I'll I'll just leave with this quote because I think it's very applicable to a lot of people. Like I said, fear is the only way that's standing between you and where you want to be. Fear is paralyzing. It inhibits you from doing a lot of things. And so don't be afraid. Give yourself permission to fail. I've had so many failures. It's going to be fine. You're going to figure it out. I think we just put so much unnecessary pressure on ourselves. Me, I'm extremely competitive. Don't get me wrong. Of course, I also put a lot of pressure on myself, but because it makes me feel good. But I think in general, we should not be afraid. There's nothing to fear. Once you get over that fear, you realize you imagined 90% of it, really, because our minds are not designed to grasp the unknown, right? And so if there's anyone out there who want to reach out and just have a longer, deeper chat, happy to do that and just help you figure out where you want to be. We'll see.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's a wrap for today's RWD Real World Discovery episode. Again, thank you guys for listening to our podcast. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And to our industry expert, my favorite, thank you so much for generously sharing all your learnings and insight with us. And thank you for being so calm and being you. I really, really, every time I talk to you, I so much enjoy it. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, Viv. And thank you for having me. And for everyone listening, all the best out there. And thank you for having me here.
Perfect. Thank you. Bye-bye.